Okay, great. Hello, everybody. This is Dan Cooper. I'm the general manager for GlyMed Plus. I'm joined today with Sarah Robbins, our director of the Institute of Skin Science. And we've got, we think, very important topics that we want to discuss with you today. And we're also going to go through, talk a little bit about safety, and then we're going to talk about several other topics. And I'll show you the agenda as we get ready to go. First of all, we want to welcome everybody. I know that these are crazy times, in fact, the most unique times of our lives. And I think the first thing that we want to impress upon you, I happen to be, I live in New York and then commute back and forth to GlyMed Plus in Utah. So I've been able to sort of experience this pandemic from both New York, which is the hardest hit part of the country, and Utah, which is a much less affected part of the country. So I think it's given me a kind of cross the country background. But our governor here in New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo, has been very proactive. And one of the things I really love that he always talks about in his daily updates is that this is an opportunity more than anything else. It's an opportunity for us to reimagine our futures, because our pasts and our presents have done nothing to really prepare us for something like a global pandemic. So we want to pick up that theme today and not really think about reopening as if we're simply going back to what we were doing before, but rather to begin to think about a new normal. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to go through our agenda here. These are the things that we hope to cover with you in the next 45 minutes or so. And then we'll stay on and be able to take some questions from you as well. So let me introduce Sarah. Sarah, would you like to jump in and say hello?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are really excited to talk about the new normal. And I love that Dan said it's more about reimagining going back to work. And I keep hearing, like, I can't wait till things get back to normal. And I think it's just so important that we understand that we are not going back to the old ways. We definitely have to take this as a learning opportunity and implement new processes and procedures in our lives and in our businesses to help make sure that we protect ourselves going forward. So I love that we're reimagining and we're calling it the new normal.
So as we think about what this means, I think the first lesson that we want to make sure that we're communicating to everybody, and again, I think we all sort of know this, but I think it's important to just state it for the record. There's no going back. The virus is here to stay until there's a vaccine or a series of preventative treatments, or until we achieve full herd immunity, which means we've all had it. And because this is a pernicious virus, it is highly efficient and it's very effective at taking over people's lungs, which is what it does. And so if you haven't experienced it yourself, or if you haven't known people that have experienced it, let me just tell you that as somebody who's in New York, where 250,000 people have been tested positive, and where we've already lost 24,000 of our citizens here, and I have to tell you, many people that I know have passed away as a result of this. I am particularly sensitive to the fact that this virus is real and it is dramatically dangerous. And so in our field, as estheticians, we are a particularly hands-on crew. So we have a certain higher level of ethical set of values that we have to hold ourselves to. And so as we think about what this means, we need to understand that we're part of a funnel. So this economic funnel is, we're in a country. Our country and our federal government has chosen not to take control. And so the federal government has decided instead to simply provide guidelines, which is okay. And that means that each state that you live in, and even each locality that you live in, has quite a lot of control right now over what is possible and what's not possible for you to do in your business. And then below that, even after a state or a locality says, yes, you can start to reopen, or you can reopen your business, start your business again, each business then has to act within the bounds of what their state or locality has authorized. And so, for example, for us in New York, no businesses can restart until May 15th. After May 15th, we go into what's called phase 1, which means only certain types of business can open up. And in New York, in our state, it's only those low-risk construction and manufacturing jobs are allowed to open up. And then in New York, every 2 weeks after that, they will begin to open up other kinds of businesses. So if you're dialing in from New York, then chances are very good your aesthetic business probably won't be opening up again until the middle of June, or perhaps even the last part of June, depending on what phase it becomes part of. And then once you've got the business, still each person, each one of us has to act within the bounds of what they believe is right. And I think this is really critical. The bottom line for each of us is that what we can never do is knowingly place another person's life at excessive risk. We know this. And we're in the business of helping people with their appearance, helping people with their health. That's what we're committed to doing. And so we've got to really remember that as we think about the reopening process, the economy kind of coming back to life, we have to realize that what we do individually affects others, and can, as we've seen with this virus, what we do individually can affect dozens of others. So it's important for us. That's why we wanted to do this Q&A, so we have a chance to talk through what is possible and maybe not possible, have you understand that really your state and your locality has a lot of control over what you're going to be able to do, but ultimately it's going to boil down to you. It's going to boil down to your values, your ethics, your business ethics, your personal ethics, and we just want you to know that at the end of the day, we're each responsible for protecting others. And so, sorry if that sounds a little bit preachy and a little ranty, but I'm in New York, and again, so I've sort of got a front lines view of what happens when people are not as responsible as they need to be. Sarah, anything that you wanted to add?
Nope, I love that. It's so important that we as professionals, it is our job first and foremost to make sure that we are ensuring safety in our practices, safety for ourselves, our staff, and also for our clients. And so that's just first and foremost, we need to be responsible for what we choose to do when the time is right to go back to work. So I do want to talk about a few things in particular. And then there's a lot of information that we can supply you guys with, and then we'll also direct you to other resources too, because I think it's important to have a lot of that information and be educated on making sure that you're ensuring safety in your workspace. So first and foremost, I think it's so important as the professional that we have an open conversation with our clients and ensuring that they are also being safe when coming back into our practice. And so I think it's important to let our clients know that they need to be wearing a face mask when they come see us, and then just give them a little bit of a breakdown and maybe some guidelines and rules that you'll be implementing while at your business. I know a lot of materials are scarce right now and there's not a lot of equipment. And so of course our medical staff needs a lot of that equipment first and foremost, but it's important that we also are taking those materials and using what we can in our businesses as well. So I'm just going to touch on a few things. We need to make sure that we have some sort of facial protection, okay? A face mask should be worn from the beginning that the client even before the client gets there. And then as the professional, you need to be wearing your mask throughout the entire treatment, all the way up until the end of the treatment and the client leaves. Now, disposable materials is of course the best option, but we know that they are scarce right now. And so there are cloth masks and fabric masks that are being used, and anything is better than nothing at this point, okay? And once your face mask is on, it's so important that you don't touch it or move it around, because we don't want to be spreading more germs and bacteria on our face, especially And then avoid touching your face, ears, and neck, anything that's close to that area. It's so important that we're not just touching for no reason. If you have to adjust your mask, it's so important that you wash your hands and that you're taking the proper safety measures. Also, we want to talk about wearing gloves. These can be your latex or nitrile, any type of material, non-sterile, and they need to be disposable gloves. And we want to talk about wearing them throughout the entire treatment. So I know normally as estheticians, there are a few of us who like to use our bare hands during the treatment, but just especially during this pandemic and moving forward, it's so important that you wear your gloves throughout the entire treatment. Okay, so we're not going to be removing gloves. If you need to double glove, that is also an option. And then of course we want to discard gloves in between each client. So we should never be wearing our gloves from one client to the next. And if possible, to use a new face mask for each new client, that also is going to be the best option as well. Again, we understand that supplies are limited right now. We still, even though we're wearing gloves in our treatment, we need to make sure that we're washing our hands in between our glove, putting on new gloves. So making sure that we're still upholding that hand washing measure. And then also the clothing or garment that we're wearing in our workplace, it's important that we are being mindful. I really recommend bringing your uniform to work, changing into it at work, and then changing out of it before you leave work, and putting that uniform in a bag and making sure it gets in the wash that night. Okay, we want to make sure that we're cleaning all of our uniforms and our tools, making sure we're sanitizing everything. As esthetician, I think we're very prideful on the level of sanitation that we already keep in our practice, but it's just so important to be even more mindful and more aware of how we can continue to keep everything nice and clean, but also go above that and make sure that we're really ensuring safety. If possible, it's important that if you can have a new garment, whether it's a smock, apron, or covering, that you change it in between clients. And that way you have a new attire for every new client that comes in. If not, just making sure that at the very least you wash that garment at the end of that day. With that being said, I think it's important that we don't overbook ourselves as well. Remember what Dan said, it's so important that we are responsible for our safety and our client safety. So this isn't about filling your schedule so it's packed, but doing services in a way that's safe for you and your client. And then I just want to touch on a few pointers for keeping our treatment room and our space nice and clean. I think it's a good practice that every hour we just wipe down our space, and that includes the heavily used areas, so doorknobs, especially in the bathrooms, light fixtures, and even the tools that we touch as estheticians. You know, if you're using any equipment, you wipe it down after every single client, and tables, making sure you're wiping everything down at least every hour, but especially in between clients. The trash needs to be emptied every single night. We don't want anything staying in the room. We want to leave our treatment room cleaner than when we found it. Our tools need to be sanitized, of course, in between our clients. If you have access to disposable tools, those are going to be preferred and the best. But again, we know that tools are scarce right now. Also, it's important that as the esthetician that you are in control of the interaction between you and your client. Anytime that you can open the door or you can be the one in charge of handling material is going to be best. That way you can just limit your contact with other individuals. So anything that you can do to help kind of take charge of that situation. Using no-touch payment options are going to be the best, especially when we first go back to work. Things like Venmo, PayPal, anything that you don't have to take a card or anything like that is going to be the best option. However, if there are no touch payments available for what you're doing in your business, make sure that you wipe down the card and the card reader after that transaction is done. And that way the client can see it as well, so that they know that you're still with keeping up that standard of cleanliness. And I would avoid cash transactions at all costs. This is your business and it's up to you on how you want to manage how you receive payment in your business. And that's a conversation that you can have with your client before they even come in to see you. I also want to recommend that you go check out the CDC's guidelines for cleaning your personal protective equipment. There's a lot of really good information on there, especially talking about the level of sanitation and disinfecting. And so it's a really great resource if you want to learn about how you should really be cleaning your tools in between clients and at the end of every day.
That's great, Sarah. I would just add just a couple other. In China, the Chinese government, which of course we understand is not the most maybe democratic government in the world, but in order to limit cash transactions, they actually pulled all the cash out of the economy. And then they issued basically digital cards. So that's how clear it was to them that cash, money, which we already know is already dirty, but it's particularly it's a particularly strong connector for infectious disease. It is the thing that other than sneezing, coughing, it's the thing that most transmits virus from one person to another. And that's why things like restaurants, for example, when you start going back and eating in restaurants, you'll need to avoid, again, no cash tips, no cash transactions. This is a great opportunity for you to begin to practice that kind of, at most a card, but even your card needs to be wiped down every time it comes out of your purse or comes out of your pocket and goes back into your purse or pocket. You need to make sure that you've got a set of wipes that you can just wipe that down. Because again, that's in this kind of new language and the new vocabulary of the pandemic, your credit card, your cash, those are called disease vectors. That's how the disease gets to you. And then just one other thing to just mention as we go to this next slide, and that is that we always underestimate the amount of space it really takes to be safe. And so I wanted to just put this in here. Now, I know that when we're doing an aesthetic service, we're going to be closer than 3 to 6 feet in virtually every case. But I want you to be aware and to be mindful of what this means for you and for your clients. So when you are unmasked, by the way, wearing a mask, there's been a lot of controversy about masks. First they say that they're good, then they say they're bad, now they say they're good. But the reality is the mask has been proven to be effective in stopping the spread, not to keep you as the mask wearer from getting the virus, because the virus is small enough it can work its way through, particularly a moist mask. But what it does do is it stops, and here you can see it on this picture, or you can see it on this slide. Even when you're talking, you've got 3 to 6 feet that are full of basically a cloud of micro droplets that carry the virus. And of course, coughing or sneezing, it dramatically increases. So it's important for you, first of all, to think about that client coming into the room before you start to do any service. And I really want to recommend that you consider testing all clients before beginning any services and doing with a simple digital thermometer that can just be placed on their forehead. And I'm sure you've all seen, videos and TV reports where people are doing this. And now in many airports around the world, certainly in New York, we're starting to see these simple digital thermometers being used. And why do we do that? Because fever is one of the first symptoms for those people who get COVID-19 that actually become symptomatic. Fever is virtually 95 to 98% of the time is the first symptom that it exhibits. But the other thing I just want to remind you of is that anywhere, and the numbers are still a little bit soft here, but at least 20 to 25% of all people who get the virus, and we're seeing this in New York, they never feel sick, they don't exhibit symptoms, and so we call that asymptomatic. And so in New York, they just completed a survey, and they now, by testing for antibodies meaning you've already had the virus. And in our state, 14% of all people, that's of 28 million people, or sorry, of 20 million people, 14% of them have tested positive for having already had the virus. Now that's way more, that's many multiples more than we've tested positive for. And so that means that so many people have had it and didn't even know they had it, and many of them were asymptomatic. But being asymptomatic means that while you may not feel sick, it still means you're infectious, you're contagious. And so that's why fever detection and the mask are really important, because if they are going to be symptomatic, then the mask will help them to not infect you more than the mask is going to help you to not be infected. So it's more about the mask as a protection for the spread than it is about for the personal protection, even though we call it PPE. So be aware that when people are talking to you, 3 to 6 feet, at least 3 feet is needed. And for everybody, we've all experienced a moment when we're in a conversation with somebody, maybe you go, oh man, I can tell what she had for dinner last night, garlic, it's garlic something. And yet we're 3 feet away. So we kind of know inherently that when we're talking to somebody, we're in that space where we're sharing air. And so you need to be a little sensitive to that. When you're coughing, you're basically coughing and sneezing. That's your body's reaction to try to eject the virus. And so coughing and sneezing is effectively rocket powering the virus out of your body. That's a good thing for your body. That's your body's reaction, trying to get rid of it. The problem is, and if you've seen some of these crazy videos on YouTube, you know that there's now some videos that show this, but coughing actually puts virus 15 to 20 feet away. Sneezing which is really like warp drive for viruses, they get ejected 20 to 30 feet away, and then they can hang in the air for up to 3 hours. So the mask is so important because it stops that cloud when you're talking. It stops that sort of jet power when somebody's coughing, and it really helps with the sneezing as well. And then client spacing, if you're in a day spa or another facility that has an open space, you really need to be about 15 feet between beds in order to maintain a safe space, given that the clients are unlikely to be masked during the service. So you really need to think, and that's more than you might think of for somebody that's in a hair salon, because they can wear a mask, or in a massage setting where they can wear it, where the client can wear the mask. But in an aesthetic space where the client is largely going to have their mask off, especially for things like facials, then you need more room. So give that, make sure that you understand that we have in our profession, we have a higher standard for space than some of the other folks in the beauty industry. And then lastly, your fully enclosed booths or rooms should have at least a 6-foot wide hallway to get to it. If you don't have that, and you're not going to reconstruct your facility, then you need to be mindful that you need to look down the hallway and make sure that you're able to maintain 6 feet, even in a small hallway. And in New York City, again, I know many people maybe haven't been to New York City and haven't been into an apartment building in the city where the density is so, but their hallways are less than 3 feet. And so, and particularly if you're in things like public, the public housing, where hallways are sometimes just 24 to 28 inches. And then you've got tight stairways, small elevators, and very small lobbies that you have to work your way through. That's a good part of the reason why we're seeing such high numbers of people. And it's because of hallways. It's because of shared elevators. It's because of tight stairways. So be sensitive to that as you look around, as you're providing your aesthetic services. Look for those pinch points, because those will become bottlenecks that will allow for an outbreak to occur, no matter how much you're trying to protect yourself generally. So we wanted to just talk about safety and distance and what it really means, given this particular type of virus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything you wanted to add to that, sir?
No, well, I think you covered a lot.
But I think even if you could just tape off sections of your flooring, like every 6 feet, it allows clients to be more mindful of where where they are standing in regards to another person that might be there. So having areas that are taped off so that they're 6 feet apart just gives everyone a more comfortable sense of that you're staying the distance. And then in a treatment room, if you can have a window open, of course, that would be helpful for that circulation of airflow.
That's great. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. Not the funnest thing to talk about, but I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about risks and liability. So, of course, we have a health risk. This is a pandemic. It's a global threat to health and safety. And so health risk exposure, when we use kind of the legal term health risk exposure, it's defined as the risk of infecting yourself and your clients based on your personal behavior. And so business risk exposure is the risk that's defined by your business practices. So what do we mean between the two of these? What do we mean? So the spacing of your beds is a business practice and would be considered a business risk exposure. Your decision to wear or not to wear a mask is both, for a service, is both a health risk exposure and a business risk exposure. And a lot of what you're going to see in terms of what happens as the pandemic sort of moves past is you're going to see some businesses are going to be potentially sued by customers, for example, if customers are able to make the argument that the health risk exposure and the business risk exposure was higher than best practices would have indicated. So we want to introduce you to this term of best practices. Best practices mean that you did the best you could with the knowledge you had in order to be efficient and effective at reducing risk. And so liability exposure, what that means is that your potential risk in dollars for either poor health or business practices. And of course, we want you to limit both forms of this exposure, especially at this time. So how do we do that? Well, first thing is adopt the attitude. Adopt a best practices attitude. Commit to do nothing less than everything you possibly can to limit your risk to yourself and to your clients. Because if you can say, even imagine yourself in a court of law, if you can honestly say in a court of law, you did everything that you knew to do, including, listening to presentations like this, checking out the CDC's guidelines and so on, then that means that you will have accomplished best practices. And a best practices defense legally is a defense that almost always stands up unless there's some egregious problem with the definition of best practices. So in other words, your best practices attitude translated to best practices actions is the best defense against somebody coming back to you and claiming that you did something, you gave them the disease in this particular case. If you have business risk, then you might want to look at whether or not your business policy includes medical liability for your clients. And that's an important thing for us anyway, because of the type of work we do. We are applying products. We're sometimes using sharp instruments, although that's fairly rare. We're sometimes employing electrical devices. So there is some risk in the nature of our business. And so, look at whether or not it includes medical liability coverage for clients, healthcare needs, and so on. If you don't have business insurance, and I fear that maybe too many of us don't have enough or maybe have any business insurance, really consider purchasing some, or if you don't have it, consider waiting a little bit longer before you go and restart your business, because you want the risk of infection generally to decline before you start before you start your business again. So I'm not here to sell you insurance. I'm just here to tell you that you don't want to be caught without insurance even if you're adopting best practices, if you can possibly avoid it. And if you work as a booth renter, then you should have a conversation with the spa or salon owner and make sure that if they may have an umbrella policy, which means it covers everybody in their facility, which means you may or you may not have need to have the policy yourself. So check into that. I know a lot of us do that. I know a fair number of us are also home-based, so check your homeowner's insurance. Also look at, there's some professional inexpensive policies that can be found at sort of the professionals level, where it's a kind of a group policy as well. So you might want to look into that as well. So just be aware that there is greater risk at this time than there generally is, and then that there are different types of risk, both your own personal health risk, but also the health risk of your clients, as well as business risk as well. Okay, so insure yourself the same way you do with any other activity in your life. You have to have, in order to drive a vehicle, you have to have a certain type of insurance there. If you're a homeowner, you have to, and a mortgage, you have to have a certain type of insurance there. So just think about the minimum amount of everything that you need in order to really become a better professional as we reimagine what this world will be as we come out of this period right now. Anything, Sarah, that you wanted to add?
No, that was perfect. So moving forward with our practices, I think it's important that we adopt new techniques and procedures when going back to work. And this really allows us to be a little bit more flexible and also to ensure safety again. I think virtual services and anything that you can do to help offer advice and stay connected with your clients virtually is going to be very impactful, and especially again during this time when, and who knows when we won't have, I mean, I think we should always be very cautious and careful in keeping our safety measures up, but especially right now, it gives us a chance to be a little bit more creative in how we can stay connected with our clients. And so making sure that you're starting to think of virtual opportunities that you can implement into your business is going to be something that will help set you apart and also help you to stay afloat during this time. I think it's important that we almost pre-screen our clients before they come in. Again, making sure you go over your safety rules with them before they come so that they know exactly what's expected. And then even doing our consultations virtually before seeing new clients especially. And this gives us a chance to look at their skin as best as we can virtually. We still can do a lot virtually with our clients. And so consultations will be a huge way that we can help limit the risk and exposure that we have, but also still provide our service and still help individuals in aesthetics. There's also opportunity to do at-home treatments and also home care products for our clients. Again, this will help keep their skin in shape and get them to an area or a place where their skin is seeing results without having to come in quite as often for an actual service. So a really great option for this would be doing at-home treatments. And this is like we actually have skin essential kits. These are fantastic to help address a concern. There's anywhere from 8 to 12 products, and they get about a month's worth use from them, and it helps them to keep their skin in shape and almost as like an at-home treatment in between coming in to see you. And this will help, again, give them the results that they're looking for, but also help to limit the contact that you will have with them. Also, social media is a huge platform. It's a wonderful platform that allows us to stay connected with our clients. And there's a lot of really great fun ideas that you can use social media as far as staying connected to clients. So the time is now. If you've ever had any reservations about doing social media or having more virtual practices in your business, now is the time to do it, because there's no better time than right now during a pandemic. Okay, and then also making sure that you have a shoppable store for your client to go through. This allows you to still continue to make an income. Our Regen retail stores are fantastic. They are a huge part of why so many of our estheticians and professionals are able to stay above during this time, especially with social distancing. It allows their clients to shop the products 365, and there's no interference with that income. And so making sure that you have your clients set up on their region store and that they're purchasing product, they know how to use it. So even if you have to create some sort of walkthrough with them, I think it's so important that you get every single one of your clients set up on your retail store so that you can continue to make income and also provide your client with a service.
And I'll talk a little bit more about regen retail as well. So let's talk a little bit, because Sarah just touched on social media. So let's think about social media and your website for just a minute. So first of all, in China, which is the country probably the most locked down other than North Korea, but one of the most locked down internets you'll ever find is in China. And yet when they locked everybody down, hundreds of millions of people turned to the internet, and their e-commerce sales, for example, went way up, even in China. And we're seeing the same thing here in the United States. Millions of people have flocked to the internet and to social media during the lockdown phase of the pandemic in the United States. You have to see this as an opportunity. Turn this to your advantage. If you don't have social media, you should run to Instagram in particular, and Facebook. Depends a little bit on, ask your family and friends what they're using. But Instagram and Facebook are absolute requirements for a successful aesthetic business as we move into the new future. It's critical that you understand that your friends, your family, your clients are critical to helping you to grow your business. Also, this is a great time, if you're going back to work right now, maybe it's not such a great time anymore, but for those of us that aren't able to go back in the next few days, you might consider creating an inexpensive website. Very straightforward to do. There's nothing really scary or highly technical about it. Wix, Squarespace, and others have low cost, even free ways that you can create a site. You don't need a big website. Really, you just need 1 or 2 pages that can display something about your business, your services, contact information, connections to your Facebook page or your Instagram, and very importantly, a connection to your retail store. And you really need to understand that social media and a website they are what together make up your digital presence. And in 2020, your business digital presence is oftentimes the more important than any kind of a sign or storefront that you might ever be able to put up. So, and you have to think about what's going on in your store and on your website and in your social media as an extension of yourself and your business. Let's just talk a little bit about business opportunities. So, so I have a background. I was a college professor for many years. I taught in the business school, and I remember talking to my students, and I continue to talk to many of those former students about economic opportunities. And I get a lot of emails saying, "Okay, Dan, so what should I be doing now? This is a pandemic." And of course I go, "Well, for my first pandemic too." But if we think about economic downturns and we think about what's happened in the past, if we look, for example, to the pandemic of 1918, it turned out that there were some pretty incredible business opportunities that came as a result of that. In fact, every economic downturn turns out to open up and really spur and spawn new business opportunities. So here's what's happening for us right now. There are the 3 things that I think are really interesting. First of all, our market and our demographics are expanding. So where a lot of aesthetic services for the past 30 or 40 years has gone into the age management area or into specialized areas like acne, what we're now seeing is because of things like healthcare workers, first responders, all of us the normal person, all people having to wear masks, now washing our hands, washing our skin so much more. What this means is we're seeing, so we all think, oh, this is such a nuisance to have to do this. But as we put our aesthetic business hats on, we go, wait a minute, this is a huge opportunity for us, because this means that's more people who need professional skincare advice and products. And so healthcare and first responders, that's a younger demographic on average. And it's also, if we just talk for just a minute about gender, the fastest growing segment in professional skincare, in skincare products, is men's skincare. And I fear too often that we're not recognizing, and that in fact it's this huge opportunity. This pandemic is an opportunity for us to think about how can we work to be more attractive to men who have the same kind of skin problems and always have. And I think that what we're going to see in the next few years is a massive expansion in our businesses. We need to reflect this with the type of services we offer and the type of products we stock, and our expertise as well, picking up additional professional skills, so that we're able to broaden across and including a much more of the male demographic here. Also, what's happening is and we just talked a little bit about this, but there's this huge expansion in our ability to retail product as people take advantage of e-commerce for their home care. And I just want to give you a sense of what this means. We host 1,800 stores, these regen retail stores, and we have seen a almost 10-fold increase in the amount of business that we're doing on behalf of in these stores, on behalf of our pro accounts that are our store owners. So a 10-fold increase in that. And that's a huge advantage. That means 10 times more money is going into the hands directly every week in the form of direct deposits from us directly into the bank accounts of our estheticians who own their retail stores. So there's a real opportunity here to ride this overall wave of e-commerce with your business. And you can still do it. If you don't have a regen retail store up, get one up. They're free. They just take a day or so to make it happen. And then you can immediately start doing virtual consultations, reaching out to your clients, friends, and family, and their client and their friends and family as well. So also I see a rising tide of demand for aesthetic services, just because right now nobody's been able to get them. And so we're going to have this massive demand wave that's because we have repressed supply right now because of the lockdown. So economically, our supply has been largely stopped, yet the demand is still building up. And so you've got an opportunity here with all the safety concerns and all the things you've got to do in terms of practices to do it safely, but there's a huge demand wave coming, and it may take months and months and months, because it may take months and months and months for people to get back to work and have the additional income to come and buy your services. So you can expect a rising tide of demand. You can expect there's a great expansion of e-commerce happening, and we're seeing a change in the demographics of our industry, maybe the largest change in demographics that we'll see in our lifetime. This is such a great opportunity for us to expand the breadth of what we do as estheticians. So let's just talk about growing your business virtually. And as I mentioned, we've opened hundreds of new regen retail stores. Each week we direct deposit tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to our into the direct deposit bank accounts of our store owners. And the reality is that most estheticians, their ability to earn has been limited by daylight, by how much time they're able to put in, by how many people that they can put their hands on, literally. And you need to understand that, in fact, with an e-commerce capability, with a digital presence, you can grow your business much, much quicker with that digital presence, and coupled with this e-commerce capability, than you'll ever be able to do in your physical side of your business. So begin to understand that you are more than your hands. You are your experience, your expertise, the intelligence, the continuing education that you do. You deserve to be compensated for all facets of the value of you and your business. And this is something that we just need to go over and over. And some of I have to say, we have dozens of success stories where retail store owners have gone from being solo practitioners, solo estheticians, booth renters, for example, and now all of a sudden they've opened their own med spa, they've opened their own day spa, they've got employees, they've got people managing their digital influence. So, really think about give yourself more credit than I find that we often give ourselves. Give yourself more credit for who you are and the value that you represent. Now, we've been on lockdown. A lot of people are short on cash. So if you're going to be short on cash, if you are, consider investing in back bar and trial sizes of products from us for the greatest value. Your back bar offers the greatest value per ounce in that you're able to do a great number of services with back bar sizes. And then trial sizes are our least expensive. Those are our sample sizes of products. And all that you need to do is get the service, do that service, and then provide them with the tastes of the products. And our trial sizes are, generally speaking, more generous than many of our other competitors. So back bar and trial sizes get you back in business, and then make sure that you have your online retail store set up. And if you need to, take a couple of minutes to just help them get their account set up, because once they make that first purchase, it is literally only 2 taps on their phone for them to reorder. And so we really want you to be able to do that. And we appreciate the fact that you may be, short on cash. The last thing we want to do, this is as we're wrapping up our presentation here, we want to emphasize again, sort of end where we started, that there's no going back. What was normal before is not normal now. And we want to invite you to embrace a new normal where your aesthetic business is both physical and digital, and both are paying you. We want you to combine your in-person services with new virtual aesthetic services, FaceTime video consultations, as we heard from Sarah earlier, and there's a number of those different types of services. Ensure every in-person service where you're physically there is fully supported by your online store for home care and retail purchases. Don't let somebody come in and then leave without them understanding that you have an ability for them that's open 24/7, 365 to expand their access and to help them with their friends and their family and others. And then think of your digital presence as just as important as your physical presence. Literally, you can grow your business faster digitally than you can physically. And don't think that being digital means that won't also grow your business physically, because it actually will. In fact, as people get to know you and as you provide more information to them, then you're going to find that that is going to give them that recommendation. You're your own best recommendation. So you need to make sure that you understand that your social media in particular, your website as well, is the fastest way for you to grow leads for new physical clients, as well as growing the digital side of your business. You want to organize each day as we move forward around both physical and digital business priorities. And in fact, on the last slide, I've got just a little tip for you. And don't think of your digital presence as technology, because people think technology is hard. They think I don't do technology. I'm not good at technology. Don't think of it that way. Think of it as just simply another form of communication and sharing. And you're all great at communication, and you're all great at sharing. And so don't think of your digital presence, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, a website. Don't think of that. And we've taken all the hard stuff out of selling online for you. So all you have to do is share, literally share your Regen retail store, and you'll have that comfortable, confident, always fulfilling, always there experience for them for e-commerce.
Absolutely.
Lastly, commit to grow your business skills as well as your aesthetic skills. And, you know, I have to say that because I'm a former business prof and, you know, I'm still in the union, so I've got to try to convince you that you always have to keep growing your business skills. But honestly, you do. You need to grow your business skills, and think of your digital communication skills as part of your business skill. And then obviously continue to grow your aesthetic skills. Never think of yourself as done when it comes to your knowledge, because your business grows and expands as you expand your own understanding and your own experience and your own skill set. Sarah, I'm sorry, I've been dominating the conversation here now. Anything that you wanted to add to the last couple slides?
No, I think it's so important that we have the opportunity right now to plan for when we can be back in business, and that we are putting that plan into action. And so I hope that we've inspired you with some of the topics that we've talked about, and given you some direction of some things that you should be implementing or starting to think about implementing as we start to get ready to go back into work.
And just because I'm a fan of Steve Jobs, we've got just one more thing for you. We've got just a few tips that we want to leave you with, because we want to leave you thinking about what you can do next. So first of all, and we've already talked about this, but reduce your inventory costs. Don't spend as much on, and this is maybe going to sound strange coming from me, but don't spend as much on product. Concentrate your inventory purchases on things like back bar and trial sizes. Limit the amount of retail size products that you buy. You can, as you can, it's okay to build that up over time, but remember that we've got expiration dates, and you want to make sure that your business investment is optimized in order to bring in the maximum amount of income and benefit to you. Send home trial sizes, because that helps your client buy from you on your retail store, your online store. And if they find that easy to do, then they can also say to their family and friends, you know, I buy my professional skincare products on, and they'll become part of your clientele. I want you to think outside your physical box. So many, and you know, my dear wife, cosmetologist, beauty school graduate, quite a number of years ago, but she oftentimes thought of herself as, oh, I just work on this, I'm just a hairdresser, Dan. And I would say, no, you're not. Don't limit yourself like that. You are not just an esthetician. You are an esthetician, but you've got to get outside the idea that your hands are how you transmit your skills, because they are not. Embrace an expanded sense of knowledge and experience, and then share that digitally. You want to know how some of our store owners have got 300 or 400 clients? It's because they have this large digital giving presence. And so what they do is they dedicate, and this is the third tip here, dedicate 1/8 of each day to your digital presence, to communicating to, sometimes it may feel like, well, who am I talking to? It's a little bit like right now, I'm talking to a microphone and talking to a computer monitor, and I can't see any of you. But I want you to dedicate an hour a day to communicating on your social media and your web channels. I promise you that you'll get, over a relatively small period of time, you'll begin to get feedback. You'll begin to get positive indications that you can grow your business. People want you to communicate with them about what you know and what you can do. I want you to let go of your limitations. I want you to establish a new vision and a new mission for this new normal. I want you to embrace your business values and your ethics. Don't settle for what was before this pandemic. Let's make this pandemic a pivot point in your life to be a better esthetician and a better business person, and to actually come through this with a better understanding of who you are, what you are and what you can do. And then the last thing I want to leave you with is to rethink your menu. Are you current in what your services, in what services you offer? Are you adding new protocols as frequently as you could? Are you adding new regimens, home care regimens? Are you taking Sarah's advice, or have you already taken Sarah's advice? Have you added at least 2 virtual services, things you can do over a FaceTime discussion, or on the phone, or with direct messenger and Facebook? Have you added at least 2 virtual services to your options? Give some thought. I want you to add something that is more focused on what men will need. So think about what you can do to expand your menu to include men, and then aggressively go after those men. I don't mean that in any bad way. I mean, for your business, go after those folks. And because they're out there, they're just ignorant about the help they need. You just got to help educate them, and that's what your social media and your website can help you do.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you wanted to add, Sarah, as well?
Nope, that was perfect, Dan.
Okay, well, we're so grateful to have had this opportunity to spend this time with you. I wish that we were face-to-face. I wish that we were able to have these kinds of conversations physically, personally. But I just want to let you all know that we are so grateful. GlyMed Plus, we are so grateful for everybody who entrusts us with your clients' care in terms of the products. We're so grateful for the opportunity that we have to serve both you and your clients through the Regen Retail Store. And we're so grateful to our team. Sarah and I have a large and very effective and efficient team that is helping us to do all this. And last thing I always want to say is I'm so grateful to Christine Heathman, our CEO and our founder. She had a vision for this industry, and that she worked to make this industry real and then make it better. She continues to do that as she provides us, as she works both on things like licensure, but also as she works with us on new products as well. So we're so grateful for her as well, and for her almost 30 years of service to our company and to the industry.
Absolutely. We couldn't have done
A lot of this without her.
Absolutely.
So
Okay. Are we going to take a couple questions if we have any?
I was just going to say, if anyone has any additional questions that they would like to ask Dan and I, we're more than happy to go through those with you. We did get a question during the presentation. Yes, this is being recorded, and it will be something that we can share. It will be available up on our website by tomorrow for our Thoroughly in the Know section. And then we'll also have a link that you guys can continue to come back and use this outline for a resource. So yes, it will be available for everyone. I went ahead and opened up the chat. So if there is any questions or anything that we didn't cover, if you'd like clarification, please let us know. We'll have this open for a few more minutes. And then if there are no questions, we'll go ahead and end it after just a few minutes.
Quiet group.
You know, well, Dan, you covered a lot of really great information. I think even covering the part with making sure everyone has insurance and coverage, I think that really gives a lot of estheticians an opportunity to think about what they are going to do to add to their business to make sure that they're protected, not just as far as like limiting the contact and slowing the spread, but you know, legally too, what are the risks that this could bring into our businesses? So I think that was a huge thing for me that I hope a lot of estheticians took that to heart and think about those risks that could be potential moving forward.
I think just on the kind of point of insurance, so many times people think of insurance as a current expense, but actually insurance is what helps you protect the future of your business. And so you pay today because of the potential risk to the future, and that's the way all insurance works. I think that's what's really important for us, is to understand that because this is a unique time, it is a time when there is more risk in the environment, health-wise as well as from a business perspective.
Absolutely. I think that was one of my favorite parts. And even talking about the potential for men clientele, like that's so true. We have so many healthcare professionals who are now seeking skin advice because, you know, the measures that they're having to take while they're on the job. And it's true, we have a large men clientele that we can take advantage of for sure.
Well, we might also just want to end with, Sarah, with just mentioning to everybody that we're so excited about the Skin Cares Relief Fund, that this is a not-for-profit independent organization that we're supporting at GlyMed, because its intent is to go after helping our essential workers and help them by improving their reducing the discomfort that they've got with regard to things like PPE and the constant hand washing, by giving them access to professional skincare and skincare products. And so we want to encourage everybody over the next week or 2 or 3, as you're placing orders or as your clients are placing orders, let them know that there will be a way, should go up in the next couple days, few days, for them to donate as you from within the Regen Retail stores, or from within Regen Pro as you place your wholesale orders. And we would encourage you all to do that. It's also, if you have a Regen Retail store, it's also possible for you to donate a percentage, any number from 1 to 100% of your Regen Retail income can be designated for a one-time or a short period of time or a long period of time, can be designated to be used as, 100% of it just goes to support the relief requests, of which we've got many that are coming in for our healthcare workers, our first responders, nursing home staff, as well as other essential workers. So that all of that just goes directly to help with that cause, something we feel very strongly about. And it also, of course, introduces a lot of products to our essential workers who might otherwise never have access to these great products. So, and not just GlyMed, we're looking for other partners, even competitors who would like to participate in this as well. So,
yeah, I think the whole goal with Skin Cares is that we're just here to help. And that's the main thing, is we're trying to provide aid and relief in an area that truly needs it. So,
yeah.
Well, Dan, I'm going to go ahead. We'll go ahead and end this. If you guys have any additional questions, please direct them to our social media, or you can reach out to your account managers and business coordinators, and we will for sure get an answer for you. But I do want to thank Dan. Thank you so much for your knowledge and bringing a lot of information as far as the business side to this Q&A and to this presentation. I really do appreciate it, and I know our estheticians do as well. And I want to thank everyone that took time out of their day today to come and be a part of this. And I'm hoping that we inspired you to rethink your business and what you can do moving forward to ensure your future and the safety for you and your clients.
Thank you, Sarah. You did a great job too.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful Thursday, and we will see you next week for our trainings. All right, goodbye.
Bye.